So, okay, so tell me about your background. Where were you talking to your fingers? Where are you from?
So I am like third generation Minnesotan, and we are referred to as the frozen chosen for obvious reasons because it's like negative degree temperatures over here, which is kind of cute. And we weren't always allowed to live in certain cities here. And so one of the suburbs we were allowed to live in was St. Louis Park. And it has since been referred to as St. Jewish Park because of that.
I didn't know there were quotas in Minneapolis.
Yeah, like my grandfather was a doctor, so he was allowed to go to medical school, but then no hospitals would hire him. So then he and some friends started their own Jewish hospital and clinic. But then by the 80s, anti-Semitism had lessened. I think it was always there, of course, which we have now discovered, obviously, post October 7th. I personally never thought in a million years that I would see this level of anti-Semitism during my lifetime. So yeah,
Yeah.
basically I'm born and bred Minnesotan. I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish Chabad house, and I went to a very small private school in St. Paul. It was called the Lubavitch Cheder. It no longer exists. And so it was hard for me. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of intensity there educationally and just socially. It was difficult. And then when I was in fifth grade, I transitioned over to more like the community school in St. Louis Park. So we were still living in St. Paul where the Chabad community was. And then we would carpool with another family to Minneapolis. Yeah. And then they actually founded a Beis Yaakov high school, which is like Orthodox Jewish, all girls. That was like really intense, never fit the mold, obviously, being a romance author type. I actually begged my parents to drop out and to go to public school and whatever. And they said no. And then, obviously, when you're in 12th grade, you're supposed to go to seminary. That is the regular path. And I said, heck no. And my parents are like, yes. So I went to a seminary in St. Agatha, Canada. And then I escaped after 3 weeks. I don't know why I'm telling you my whole life story.
No, I'm kind of tell me about the escape.
The escape was really funny. I never unpacked my suitcase because I didn't want to be there, but I did respect my dad a lot. And he said, you're not going to get a good shidduch unless you go to seminary. And I said to him, I'm not interested in marrying a guy if he would only date me if I went to seminary, if I chose the right path. Like I knew who I was from a very young age. And I think I wasn't given that kind of respect that maybe my parents should have given me. So I never unpacked my suitcase. I said, I'm gonna get out of here. And then the principal kept trying to convince me. She's like, one more week. And I just said no, I had enough. And I called a taxi about I think it was like 3 a.m. and went to the airport, and I literally escaped in the middle of the night in another country, and I said I'm coming home. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I obviously knew I wouldn't get like the traditional shidduch because of this, but I knew I wouldn't be interested in a guy who wanted me only if I did do the traditional path. So yeah, I came home. I went to a medical assistant program because I knew my dad's like, we need to get you married. Fortunately, how it is, I think in this current culture is the older you are as a woman, especially, the more your value decreases.
Isn't that funny? It's like you're a car. You drive it out of the lot.
So at the age of 19, I was, even though my prefrontal cortex had obviously still not formed, I still had no idea who I was. I didn't want to get married, but I felt like I had no choice. I had very low self-esteem. I didn't think I could even be accepted into college. So I didn't even try to take the SATs. I thought this is my only path in life is to get married and have a man support me because that was all I could do. And, I didn't want to be a mom. So I did go to traditional shadchanim, and that was like awful because they pretended to listen to what I wanted and then they matched me with something totally not what I wanted. So then I just said, I'm going to find my own shidduch. So at the time, there was something called Frumster. It no longer exists, but I saw my husband's face and he was smiling in a way where I just looked at him and I'm like, he looks like a nice guy. And then and then my dad, and he called himself Chabad Light. And that's kind of how I identify. I'm kind of a mixture of a little bit of everything. And he's a Baal Teshuvah. He was told because he's a Baal Teshuvah, he's never going to be able to marry someone from birth. There's all these like crazy, right?
All the stories they tell us. Yes. I'm
All
also
the stories.
it's unbelievable the ideas that still dominate that tell women like what their value is and what they should be and how they should present themselves in order to be marriageable because that's the goal for a woman.
Exactly. And it's so interesting because when I was a child, I had a lot of autoimmune issues. I was almost diagnosed with lupus. And so being Chabad, my parents said, we're going to set up a meeting with the Rebbe who, was alive at the time. So we had what they call Yichudis. And it's actually one of the gem videos they play, the gem video. Anyway, and so the Rebbe basically looked at me and he said in Yiddish, something like, you're a good Hasidic Tochter, so which means like a good Hasidic daughter, basically. And yet, so then my dad was like looking at me like, whoa, you're like a huge Sudeikis. Like he was just enamored by that conversation, although at the same time he was shamed because the Rebbe said there's nothing wrong with her and stop worrying. My miracle, I mean, the miracle, it did seem like a miracle because my symptoms did go away. So it's a cool story, but looking back on it, I'm obviously not what I think my dad pictured I would grow up to be. I did not grow up to be this Rebbitzin type.
That reaction, and I obviously don't know your father. I'm not judging. I'm just responding to the information that was just given to me, which is think that other side response of whoa, you're this like that's pressure on the other side. You're either not enough or you're totally elevated. It's like you can just be you.
Right. It was. There was definitely kind of a before and after. And it was so much pressure that I just, because my dad kept repeating it to me, and I just said to him, like, stop. I don't want to hear any more, kind of, about what the Rebbe said about me.
Your escape from seminary totally tracks.
And then as a teenager, I went into like a goth stage. I was not the good Hasidic Tochter that everyone expected. And yet, I feel like I've always been that very frum person in my soul. Like my values, the core of who I am, is very in touch with my neshama, my soul.
So you mentioned that you dealt with low self-esteem, that you didn't feel like you were capable, and clearly that's not the case now in the woman I see in front of me. So I'm curious what that trajectory was. What changed for you?
Well, I think the only thing that I have been good at my entire life was writing. And I've always loved reading. And I think that's a natural transition if you love reading and books to write. And I think it's also a way to escape. So I didn't do well in school. And until fifth grade, I didn't have any friends really. Luckily, I had a rabbit who was like my everything. Like if you can at least have a pet. So literally nobody understood it. But when she died, I was like 13 and it was the most immense grief. It was really devastating. Kids in my class laughed when they found out I had to take time off of school to mourn. But she was my everything. Like I could tell her things I couldn't tell my parents. But I still struggle. But I mean, honestly, the trajectory is it's still ongoing. I still feel like I'm on that journey where I do still have to work on myself. I totally still struggle with self-esteem. Obviously, I do feel a lot more validated, that it always helped. I'd write a story and I had friends. One friend said, I'm going to keep this. I had given her a printout of one of my stories. And she said, I'm going to keep this because I know one day you're going to be famous. You're going to be published. And I want to have one of your originals. And just something like that made me feel so good. And, my parents both believed in me. My husband believed in me. But what really matters are the stories that we tell ourselves. So we can have so many people support us. But I think during your formative years, if you're not meeting your own set of expectations and you kind of compare yourself to everybody else, it's a recipe for failure many times. And so I do still struggle with self-esteem, but I started therapy recently. So, life is a journey and so is religion.
So tell me about that. You said you had an aha moment with Hashem. Tell me about
I
that.
totally did. Okay, well, just as a quick backstory, when I was in Base Yaakov, so I was in high school, and I read a book called, I think it was All for the Boss by Ruchama Shane. Yeah, right. And I think
Sure.
that's the book. She wrote a couple, but I think that was in the book where she talked about talking to God, just in, regular English, just talking as if he's like a friend. And for me, that was mind blowing because I would pray every day, but never using my own words. And so that's when I said, I'm going to try that. And I've been doing that ever since. But a couple of years ago, I think it was like 5 years ago, it was like the coolest thing that happened to me. I've always chosen the car for some reason. When I'm driving in the car just by myself, I'll talk to God. And so I was talking and I just said to God, it's kind of annoying because you never respond back. How do I even know you're listening? And then I kept driving and I'm like, oh shoot, I need gas. So I pulled into the gas station and the reader, I couldn't pay for gas because the reader, whatever you call it, was rejecting my car. It was just not working. So then I went to the next one and that wasn't working. There were only like 4 there. And I'm kind of lazy and I'm an introvert. So I try to avoid human interaction sometimes.
Oh, you're speaking my language, honey. Yes.
Basically, I'm like, I'm not going to go in. I'm just going to try this one. And by the third time, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go in. So I went to the counter and the woman, and I explained the situation and she looked at me almost like she was in a trance. And she said, God is all over your face. And the worker next to her looked at her like this. And I was like, it was huge for me. It was because I had just been like, are you even there? Are you even listening? So it was a weird way of phrasing it. But just to hear God is all over your face, I got the chills. It felt like a hug, honestly. So yeah, that was like it couldn't have been a coincidence.
It's so interesting. As religious women, we also, it's assumed like if we dress a certain way or we act a certain way, that spiritual side is locked in and like that belief is locked in and we have that. No, we're learning it on the job just as much as anybody else. We also have that push pull with faith, with belief, with it's part of the journey. It's fascinating to me.
I agree.
What
I totally agree. I mean, after October 7th, I said to God, sorry, I was so angry at God, obviously Hamas as well. But I just said to God, we're done. But even though I would say to Helen, I would say the Psalms for the hostages. At the same time, I would no longer talk to him in English like he was my friend because he had become my enemy. Like, how can you control things? How could you split the sea and do all these miracles that you've done and yet allow such awful, barbaric things to happen in the world at the same time? How could you? If you're my father, how could you do this? So, now we're okay. I'm still kind of feeling lingering resentment. And I know that we in this earth will never understand the full picture. And I just have to, but like you said, religion is a push and a pull. It's, not linear. So
Yeah.
that's for me. Yeah, exactly. Like you can look at somebody who's in a shadel and, she's dressed very modestly, but you don't know her struggles internally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest educations I ever got in Jewish women's spirituality was when I worked as a mikvah lady,
Wow.
because I had women. I remember the two contrasting stories. The one is this one woman came in with like full wig, hat, suit, bulletproof tights. Like she she took 2 hours. She went in, was doing her thing for like 45 minutes, came out into the hallway. I heard her call her Rub to like ask about something. Then she goes back in. Finally, after 2 hours, she calls me to go in and she goes in the water and she goes, wait, it was too much in her head about halacha and did I do it right? And I finally got to the point where I said to her, I'm like, I said kosher, you're kosher. Then I had another woman. This woman walked in, bleach blonde hair, black roots, tank top, booty shorts, side boob, whatever, smelling like cigarettes. That woman got in that mikvah and did not come out for 20 minutes because she was talking to Hashem like they were buddies. She's laughing. She's having the best time. You have no idea what is going on with a woman spiritually. You cannot know from somebody's outsides how close or far they are to God. You have no idea. And it was such an education for me as someone who wasn't religious, became religious, thought I had to be a certain kind of religious or look a certain way in order to be in the club, and it really sort of shifted my mindset to I get to choose what the outside looks like and I get to choose what the inside looks like too.
Yeah, I had to learn that. I think there is sometimes an element of OCD in Orthodox Judaism. There's an element of it. And I had to learn for my personal comfort to kind of get over that. I even
Right.
had something called magical OCD. Have you heard of that?
Tell me.
Yeah. Well, so this is when I was a kid, and for some reason in my head, I had to have like the things in my bedroom, like let's say some toys, I had to have it arranged just so, because then in my head, I would have a better day. Almost like I thought, here's a way I can control the outcome of my life, of my current circumstances. It's so funny, but thankfully I got over that. But I also got like really sick for many years. Like I would get all these unexplained fevers and I got arthritis. And I think honestly, it was my body saying, I don't feel safe. It was like a cry for help. Because
Sure.
I didn't feel safe in my school. At home, I felt safe, but not at school. But you know what else is interesting when you're talking about the mikvah? I am actually a member of the Chevra Kadisha here. And that is something that is just indescribably beautiful because it feels like I'm the exit mom, if that makes sense. When you are preparing the deceased, you can like feel the neshama in the room. It's a palpable feeling. It's a person who is no longer there in one way, but you can feel the neshama hovering. And when you're the last person, or I'm like one of three, but when you're one of the last people to, like, for example, we wrap the mace, is what we call the deceased, in sort of a blanket. First we dress them in shrouds, then we wrap them in a blanket, but we wrap it in such a tender way, like when you wrap a baby, for example, in like a hospital blanket. And it's especially beautiful because you're the last person to see them and help carry them to the next world. Like a real mom, you're the one bringing in this person, this neshama. And when you're part of the Chevra Kadisha, you are one of the almost moms that's saying goodbye and thank you for being here. And we say, so my name, I was actually named after my great grandmother, who was one of the founders of the Minneapolis Chevra Kadisha. So when I was a little girl, I always knew one day I want to honor her by continuing her legacy in this way. And I actually got to hold her prayer book with her little notes. And so it's especially meaningful on so many levels. Anytime that as a Jewish woman, you can continue the legacy of the people that came before you, especially knowing her history and how she had to escape Lithuania from the immense anti-Semitism, and being able to just continue the tradition that she didn't try to forget her heritage. She didn't try to convert into another religion. And I don't blame the people who did do that because of anti-Semitism. I probably would. No, actually, I don't think so, but you never know. Anyway, because after October 7th, I became more Jewish and loud and proud than ever. But anyway, so yeah.
Talk to me about being an Orthodox woman writing romance novels. How does that work?
Yeah. I never thought I would be writing Orthodox Jewish romance because, as my friend who told me to do it, I said, honey, that's not a thing. And then she said, well, make it a thing, because we did hear an agent speak one time, and the agent said, basically, you have to write a story that only you specifically can write based on your life experiences. And that's what agents and publishers are looking for. And so that's when my friend turned to me and said, you need to write an Orthodox Jewish romance. So yeah, I did it, and I wasn't expecting to get any, agents interested, but I was super surprised when I did get an offer from a UK agent, and then she reached out to an American agent. It was kind of a weird long story, but yeah, it was just my first round of querying, and I was really happy. But then I found out, oh my God, once you have an agent, that doesn't even mean that for sure you'll get a book deal. I had no idea. So yeah.
I'm curious. I haven't had the pleasure of reading your book yet. I hope to soon. But I'm curious, are there sex scenes in your books?
So the first one, there isn't. Unorthodox Love, there is not. My agents were very firm, like, you need to keep to the halachas, basically, like the Jewish laws. And once again, I felt like a rebellious teenager, and I'm like, why? But anyway, so it's interesting because the main character in it is a very, very proud Orthodox Jewish woman, which I love about her. She's very fierce. So even though she falls in love with her secular boss, she says, no, I'm not going to change who I am to fit a man's expectations. So she's like a really cool, badass, feminist Jewish woman. And then my next book, Match Me If You Can, there is a sex scene because I decided I'm going to write it. And if the agents don't like it, because they're always the ones who read it first, if the agents don't like it, I'll remove it. I'm not too emotionally attached to any scene. But they were great. They said it's great. But I got terrible backlash actually from it. So much so that I'm like, okay, I guess I won't be doing that again.
Backlash from who?
Not some Orthodox Jewish readers. And the funny part is, I don't even really, in my head, I don't write for the Orthodox Jewish readers because my publishers are neither Jewish nor particularly religious. So I just write for kind of the mainstream audience. So whenever I do have an Orthodox Jewish reader reach out, I'm always like, and so they were very hugely supportive of my first book, An Orthodox Love, even though there's a gay character in it who was Orthodox. And then because of the things he's experienced, no longer is. So nobody had a problem with that. But the sex scene, just like, because it was, I think, a premarital sex scene and they were both Orthodox Jewish, that was a big problem. Somebody messaged me and said, I will never again support your books. I was going to buy several copies, but now I won't. And then it's really weird. But one of my husband's Dafyomi Chavrusas, which is like a Gemara learning Torah partner, read it. He loved my first book too. But the Match Me If You Can, he said, if you are representing, the Orthodox Jewish community, this is a big disappointment. I do have a lot of guilt, to be honest, for my daughter's sake, because I know this actually will hurt her chances at getting the type of shidduch she may want. Like whenever you limit your child's options in life because of your choices, that's a big burden to carry.
I'm sitting with that for a second.
Please.
Yeah, because what you're saying is 100% real. And there's a part of me that wants to just be like, yeah, but you deserve to, create your art and speak and say the things. And guess what? Orthodox people have sex and they have sex before marriage. And even the ones who say they do, and all of that can be true simultaneously. And it feels outdated to think that way, but but you're just naming a truth. And it's, yeah.
And I really had good intentions when I wrote it. I wasn't trying to slam. In fact, my intention was to say, let's stop having a double standard when it comes to Orthodox Jews, because they are held to a different standard because they're supposed to be. My purpose was to communicate to people, Orthodox Jews, we're just humans. We're just like everybody else.
I get that there is this desire / need to uphold halacha because you don't want to water it down, because you want to maintain the tradition. But I think it's the responsibility of not just rabbis, but people to meet other people where they are versus where we think they should be, versus where we think we should be. I teach a class on Amuna. We were having a conversation yesterday about how we should on ourselves, right? Like we as women should on ourselves, we as Jews should on ourselves, and we should on each other,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm good at nuance, I guess, multiple truths at once. And I think that scares a lot of people.
I think
Because-
that's so healthy though.
Totally. Because if more than one thing is true, does that make my thing less true? I agree with you. No, you're shaking your head. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't make it less true, but it's hard for people to sit with both things.
It is. People see Orthodox Jews and they think this is how they are. And I know I have some friends who became Baal Teshuvas and then they became surprised when they found out, they're not all that spiritual. Like you were saying, the two women that, you were the mikveh lady of, sometimes it became more about the OCD than the actual experience.
Oh, now I'm curious from my own experience because my characters have sex. In my book, there's abortion. There's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's just holding a truth that exists. I'm not teaching anyone. I'm just telling them a story. My job is not to teach. My job is to tell.
Exactly. It's art.
I respect my readers. I respect them. I will give you the information and you decide what it means.
Yes.
And the idea, and I'm sorry, any writer or any artist who is writing with a message, I want to slap them in the face. I don't need you to tell me what to think. I want you to give me something to think about.
Yes. Yes.
And
exactly.
this idea of like editing and censoring, and it's tricky. And if you want to see a Jewish spectrum of people making a spectrum of choices without any moral judgment either way, then please come in. But if you're expecting a certain representation of a certain type of person, you're going to be disappointed because art doesn't do that.
Yes. And the way I grew up, I was very much taught both in my home, like Chabad is the best for all Jews to follow. And then I was given the Litvish education also from 5th grade to 12th grade. And I was taught this is the path you have to take. All Jews should be doing this. And I always hated that. I think God wants diverse Jews. I think that's why he made us this way. And I don't think there is one path for everyone to take. I hope that's not true. So
I don't think first of all, I don't think it's true. And I don't think it's possible. You have people, every single person has a different set of fingerprints. How are they supposed to do Jewish the same way? I don't get it.
Yes.
And I'll say something even more controversial.
Yeah.
I'm not sure every Jew is supposed to be from.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe they were from in a past life and that's not their current mission in this life. We don't know.
Or their from looks different than yours. When I first became Shomer Shabbat, I still wanted to go to shul and I wasn't close enough to walk. So I drove.
Yeah.
But my thing was every time I went anywhere in the car, and it's still like this, I always listen to music in the car. And music is like, love it. So I was like, on Shabbos, if I'm driving, I'm not going to listen to music in the car. Like that was my beginning. That was my from at the time.
Yes. Yeah. And that's beautiful. That's
right.
Beautiful. And it's between you and Hashem.
That's right.
You know? And so it's not about what other people think, but it's hard for us as humans, we're wired to care what other people think.
It's actually in our code of survival because we were like cave people, like being in the group. This whole idea of conformity, people still resonate with it because there is a genuine survival instinct that says, I need to fall in line or else my life is at stake. If you're part of the group, you would be on your own and left to literally fend for yourself. People are like, oh, I need to be like everybody or I'll be by. Now your life isn't so reliant on you, being
right.
Responsible. Oh. There's the worth piece,
Back in the day, people like you and I, we would have been eaten by tigers like by the time we were 9 or something.
I don't think so. I think you and I and all the other bad bitches would have gotten together and had our own club and we would take care of each other. That's what I think would have
I feel badass. Yeah, I probably would, especially if I had children. I was always that mama bear. So yeah, I could do it. Yeah. It's interesting.
I think somebody else like do the work. Just like hang out and like tell everyone else what to do,
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. So what's your favorite part about writing?
Escaping into my character's mindset, because it's, your main characters are always somewhat a part of you and your experiences. And at the same time, they're their own person. So I struggle to follow a plot many times because whatever they're supposed to do in a scene, they sometimes don't cooperate. They just don't. That's how it is for me. Is it like that for you too?
Oh my God. I had this recently. I had this one character I adore. I'm obsessed with her. And so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, we're gonna go do this thing now. She's like, no, I'm done here. And I was like, what? She's like, no, I die now. And I was like, you can't die now.
Well,
I
that's too
did it.
funny. Wow.
And she was like, no, my work here is done. And I wrote her death and I was sad for like the rest of the day. I really mourned her. And that's
Yeah.
for me, my favorite part of writing is
Yeah.
falling in love with these people. They become my friends.
Yes.
To know them.
And don't they stay with you forever? I find my main characters are still staying with me.
My favorite is after somebody's read my work. I don't
Yeah.
want them to tell me it's good. I want to talk about my characters. Like, oh my God, didn't you love blah, blah, blah? Like they're like my people.
Yeah.
Another thing I love about it too is, and I'm sure you can relate with this, every time I sit down to write, I'm like, can I do this? I know I did it yesterday, but is anything going to come out to
Me too.
work? And then at the end of the day, there's like words on the page and I was like, oh, we did it. Okay. All right. I guess we'll try it tomorrow.
That doesn't happen for me. Sometimes I'll sit down and I can be really OCD with my writing, and that's really bad. It really slows you down. Do you do that, or can you just flow?
So I don't believe in writer's block because I think writer's block just means you're not writing. Put words on the page. It can be shitty writing. It doesn't matter. Then you have clay to play with.
Yes.
And so even if I don't feel like it's like something polished, I at least have something on the page at the end of the day that's leading me somewhere that will trigger a thought that works here. I also have been using AI not to write for me, but to work out my ideas about where things should go. And it helps me map chapters so that I know what the beats are going to be, but then I work my way there.
Yeah. I mean, I've read so many books on how to write because, I didn't go to college. Like my highest level of English is high school. So when I decided I'm going to try to write a book this time for real, because I did self-publish one book, but I had no idea what I was doing. But when I was going to like try for real and I joined a writer's critique group, I was like, I'm going to study story structure and everything. But then when it came down to it, I just found it was really hard to put into practice.
It's definitely hard to put into practice. My rule of thumb has always been follow the character and they'll show you where they want to go. The other thing, I actually heard some really good advice recently from the creators of South Park.
Yeah. Because they were Jewish.
Were they Jewish?
That's what my husband said.
So their rule with writing is something happens, but it can't be something happens and then it's something happens, but this. So you give them, there has to be something that they're pushing against. And it doesn't always have to be obvious. It can just be like, whether it's an internal thing or this is going on. Like, the book I'm writing right now is about a girl. She's raised in Toledo, Spain in 1980 something. And her family gets kicked out during the Inquisition. In that book, you're a Jew fighting to survive and get through this new country. So everything you do is a but.
Yeah.
And then she works around the butt, and
wow.
Yeah.
How did that idea come to you?
So my mom told me that my family got kicked out of Spain during the Inquisition. I have no data to back this up at all. But my mom, may she rest in peace, loved to make stuff up. So it's very possible that this is a made up thing. But if you look at my skin and you look at like a few other factors, she might not be wrong. So I started thinking about it. Like, who would my family be? Who would I be if I was there? And then I was like, okay, so if they got kicked out, where would they go?
Woman, I'm fascinated.
Right. So I was fascinated too. And I was like, I like this story. I'm going to play a game here and see how. And
that's
so
what writing is, I think, Yeah, it's like many times I'll get inspired by reading someone else's story. And then I'll be like, what if the character did something like this, chose a different path or
Or like, what if she was in this situation, but she was doing something different and like they were somewhere else and, and it just happened. And it's interesting because I don't know if you can relate with this either. Like when you start a project, like you're just kind of feeling it out. It's almost like a newborn, right? Like you have this newborn and yes, you love them because you gave birth to them and your hormones or whatever, but like really you're kind of just taking care of this like raisin in your house, like you're like, is this thing on? Like you're getting nothing, you know what I mean? And then about 3-4 months in, all of a sudden they give you eye contact, they smile at you and you're like, okay, there you are.
You
Like,
are a human. Yeah.
yeah, you're a human person. Okay, great. Now we got something. I feel like that's kind of how it is with writing also. I start with this thing that I don't really know what it is, and then suddenly it becomes something. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see who you are now. I wasn't sure who you were here, but now I'm seeing you go on. It just it's so cool.
It is so cool. Once you start writing, the characters reveal themselves to
Yes.
you. But at the
Yes.
same time, you have to have there's always an internal flaw. And then you have to also connect that to their goal. There's like the external goal, the internal goal, and you always have to connect it. And it's just, you have to make sure they align.
Right. Right.
So,
And what I love about writing also is I think for many years I had this idea that like writing came out like divine dictation. Like you just write it and it's perfect. Like it just comes out perfect. But now I see like words are like clay and you get to shape them and play with them and it's fun.
and I was never good at math. And math, for example, there's always one right answer, one digit off, and you get an F minus before you know it. Yet with writing, you could do anything.
Anything.
That's what
And
I love about it. And I think as growing up as an Orthodox Jew, there were so many laws and restrictions, and I did feel very much limited in many ways. And so writing was an escape where I could be anybody, I could do anything. So that was really, I don't know, a very freeing experience and continues to be for me.
for sure. For sure. I
Yeah.
love it. I think also in our very small microcosmic human way, we get a taste of what God must feel like when he creates us, you know?
Oh,
That
I
like
never
he's
thought about that,
he
but you're
writes our
so right.
stories, he creates us, he builds our flaws, he puts all this stuff in, and then he decides how our story's gonna go and sends us this and sees how we react to them. And we get to play God a little bit with our work.
Oh, yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, I love it.
It's the best job in the world.
It is. It really is.
When
Okay.
I say the words awake Jewish woman to you, what does that mean?
It, to me, it means somebody who roars like a tiger and who will fight for her people. So, like, awake means saying, I'm a loud, proud, and unapologetically Jewish. Hear me roar.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank thank
I hope, God willing, one day very soon, I will see your book on bookshelves.
My best friend Alana told me this great story the other day. She has a friend, this woman's son, 5 years old, said, "Mom, can we go to the beach?" She said, "Yeah. I'm gonna go get a few things together." She starts packing the lunches. She starts, getting the bathing suits. And the 5-year-old comes in, "Mom, you said we could go to the beach." "Yeah, yeah, we are. We're going. I just need to get everything ready first." So she's, getting the water bottles and this. "Mom, you said we were going to the beach." She said, "I know we're going to the beach. We are definitely going. But if we go right now and I haven't packed everything, we're not going to have a good time. We're not going to be ready." So I'm trying to think of this the same way. Like Hashem's making us ready so that
Ah,
when it's time, I'll be able to actually hold and enjoy it.
that's so true. And I was once in a contest, an Orthodox Love, before it became represented and published. I submitted it to a contest, and I ended up being like one of the 10 finalists. But I was so disappointed that I didn't make it. And I said to myself, one day when this does get published, this will be, I'll feel all the more proud when it happens because of this slight setback. Or,
Amazing.
yeah. All right.
Cool. Well, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.